Hey, welcome back with Professor Avram Ehrlich, Social Civilizational Diagnostics. And tonight we have a special guest, Professor Ari Nagel, all the way from Brooklyn, New York.
Professor Ari Nagel, you are my friend. We know each other for a long time. From New York, Brooklyn, a professor of mathematics.
Yes, friend and colleague.
Friend and colleague. Mm-hmm. And what type of mathematics do you do?
I'm teaching at the City University of New York, and every semester different. It's actually the mathematics and computer science department, so I teach some computer science classes, but lately I've been teaching more mathematics.
Are you interested in computer science?
I enjoy mathematics and computer science, which oddly enough is really the same in every country. I think many subjects that are taught at the school are probably taught very, very differently in other schools around the world. But the math that they're teaching at the City University of New York is exactly the same math that they're learning in Sydney, Australia, and in Tehran, and in Tel Aviv.
So why haven't you videographed yourself and done it all online and saved yourself the effort of getting back for a semester?
I do have a couple hundred videos of some mathematics courses, but ultimately I need the chair to sign off on online classes. This past semester I taught a hybrid class. That's where you do half online, half in class. And that was a nice setup. And slowly but surely I hope to transition to more online classes, but there's something about face-to-face.
Do you think that you will be able to teach an international online class where many people from all over the world complement and contribute almost to like an orchestra, but in a classroom of mathematics?
I'm doing that every day because even though I'm teaching in the City University of New York, if I took a poll of my students, they're from everywhere in the world. Because New York, you're getting people, there's around 500,000 students in the New York City University of New York school system. It's a very large urban university. But they comprise 200 languages, clearly, for sure.
200 languages.
I would imagine of the 500,000 students, there's going to be 200 languages spoken there.
What's the size of the average class?
I had a student who was fresh off the boat from Yemen. He escaped the civil war there. And he's sitting in my class, and he really didn't understand English so well. And he was struggling to understand the lecture. And he said he was looking around the class, looking for someone who maybe spoke Arabic that could help translate the lectures to him. And he didn't see anyone with a hijab or anyone that looked like they may spoke Arabic. But there was one Jewish kid with a big kippah sitting in the class. And sure enough, he was a Syrian Jew, spoke fluent Arabic. He was the one who translated the whole lecture for him. And I think immediately it was a big awakening for him because he was already starting to question. And of course, he was being recruited by ISIS while he was in Yemen. He really enjoyed their music. In fact, they were using music as a recruiting tool. And I think that he started to see the horrific massacre that was happening in his own country, and he's like, why am I hating on Israel? I see the Houthis and these terrible atrocities being committed right here. Why am I focusing my efforts on hating Israel when I see Arabs killing Arabs right here in my own country? So that was his first awakening, and then when he had this Jewish student that was translating the lectures, I think he quickly transitioned and realized, in fact, I keep in touch with him. And he's a very, very bright student, but he's not so religious anymore.
So do you think that these types of relationships can only be achieved face-to-face? Do you think that in the future we could have deep and meaningful relationships which are not face-to-face?
Yeah, I think in some ways the relationship can also be enhanced when it's online. Sometimes people are a little more bold when you're doing it online, so maybe students wouldn't feel comfortable asking me a question in person, but online, they'll say almost anything and everything, as people often do. So I think a lot of these comments, these cyberbullying, this only happens online. They wouldn't never say these comments to people in person. They'd be too embarrassed or too shy. So it works both ways.
So is there some way that the online or the digital component could enhance and mitigate the damage, or what do you think about that?
Well, I think it could make education accessible. All they would need is a smartphone, and they would have access to this lecture and many, many others. And I think that's really where the power of these online tools lie. I think a large part of the developing countries are still using flip phones. I think the best way to maybe bring so many of these millions of people. I was in Nigeria in February, and there's more people living below the poverty line in Nigeria than any other country in the world. But I think if we just could put a smartphone in every one of these kids' hands, even they have, I don't know, in the U.S. I'm buying smartphones for $10. They're nothing fancy, but they got a camera and they got a screen. And I think that could maybe bring a lot of people out of poverty, because they could learn how to be, computer programmers just from watching online.
Out of curiosity, why don't you teach by phone? Why don't you, as a computer science and mathematics teacher, professor, why don't you take interest in the application of the methodology, the computer science methodology, in its most obvious way?
I do. I put a lot of my lectures online. But in the end, in order
what
to
about
get...
online collaboration? Not only lectures, but actually to create a more multi-dimensional component where you can act online.
Not only am I putting my videos online, I take other faculty members' videos and I share those with my students and compile it, and then take mine and I share it with the other faculty. So there's a lot of that that goes on.
Where do you see this going in the best case scenario for education?
Well, thankfully I have tenure, so my career will still be here, but I think ultimately AI will take over much of the education system. I think it's done a lot more efficiently. I think a faculty member is going to have thousands of students, and a lot of the grading and instruction is going to be done with AI, and then just managed vis-a-vis one faculty member.
And what about other, not only AI, but AI in the form of holography and visuals and interaction? Because you could create a whole class, an individual can create a whole classroom with all the supports and the teachers and even the fellow classrooms and even the competitors to him on the bench, on the study bench. They can be AI creations in order to stimulate his own development. So, what do you think about what are the horizons for pedagogy?
I see it. I see it just in my own department, because we have older faculty members and they're busy grading papers and with checks and X's, and then you have other faculty members where it's all done via AI already. A lot of these textbooks have so many ancillaries where they answer a question wrong, and then it gives them instructional material of things that they need to do, and then when they answer the fill-in question right, then all of a sudden it takes them to the next question, and obviously it's all graded and then computed based on in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you have other faculty members that are still writing it in and then calculating averages using a calculator. So you get a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and you see the trend. And
okay, let me just ask you out of the blue, just to sort of jolt your imagination a little bit. What do you think is a best case scenario? Like give me one vision that you can, which is an amazing vision, a best case scenario for the education, the teaching of online to the world, and how it will be done, the images, the structure of it.
Well, the major innovation is going to be that it's going to be free. They'll develop these classes, and right now each faculty member is developing their classes. This really could be done as a community, as teams. They'll develop these amazing lectures and amazing classes, and then the rest is history. After that, then they could just share these lectures, and then everyone will have access to them, and it would be a free type of degree, whereas now people are taking tremendous loans to help finance their education, and I think a lot of them suffer to pay off these loans, especially if they are starting to major in something along the lines of liberal arts majors, where sometimes they graduate and then it's a little challenging to pay off $100,000 in loans when they have a liberal arts degree and there's really no big payday. But
So
it's something that they're passionate about.
There will be free education, then that'll be incredible. Free education, the greatest burden on an average American family and many families to educate their children will be taken care of. So
and even more so, people that don't have the access to the education, not outside of America, they'll have access to an education as well.
And what will
language
teachers, and what will teachers do? What will the future jobs?
Well, I think like almost every other job, it's going to be replaced by technology, and they'll have to also find other avenues.
So where do you imagine this going? Will people be working? Will there be a universal income, or is there other ways to structure the this AI-driven convenience?
I think like every other job, they're replaced by other jobs. Yeah, I think people aren't going to be driving cars anymore, but people weren't driving cars back in the day, and somehow they still had work. So all these taxi cab drivers and truck drivers, they're out of a job, but 150 years ago, we didn't have any taxi cab drivers and truck drivers either. So this was a new job, and now it's going to be replaced by a different job.
Good job. And so you think that jobs are going to be a part of our future into the next 100 years? People will be working.
Yeah. Yes.
A lot every day. You have a lot of holidays.
I do have a lot of holidays. It's true. It's part of the reason why I do what I do. You know the main two reasons why I decided to go into education. Obviously, I very much enjoy helping shape future generations, and I love being an educator. But I would say the main two reasons are probably winter break and summer break. Those are the primary reasons. It allows me to be here, and it really is. I think it helps my lecture. I'm going back to the spring semester, March 3rd, and I have a whole new perspective just from the past few months. I did 10 countries last month, and I hope to do a couple more this month. So,
would you like to?
I think it makes me a better teacher.
Makes you a better teacher to travel, to take the time off.
Take the time off, travel, and then just meeting people and exploring my interests beyond mathematics.
Out of curiosity, are your colleagues in school? Can you give me a profile of an interesting colleague in the Department of Maths or Computer Science? Someone that you know in your department or in another department who you think is worthy of note?
I've been teaching there over 20 years, so I've gotten to know quite a few of them well, but most of my closer friends are people from the math department. A lot of them use flip phones, and I'm like, yeah, we're the mathematics and computer science department, and here they are now. They just hanging on to their flip phone. They do not want to adapt. I had a good friend of mine who just retired recently, and he's probably my closest friend, and we're still in touch. He's out in Delray, Florida. He'll be coming to Israel. Maybe our trips will overlap a little bit, and you'll get to meet him. Anyone that stands out, they're all dedicated. I had a friend that retired. He's been teaching there for over 60 years. Isn't that remarkable?
In terms of intellect, in terms of the intellectual, in terms of their vision, in terms of what they were contributing, in terms of the impression that they made on you in some way or
another. No. None of that. Yeah, good friends of mine, but they're not revolutionizing anything, right. And they're caring, they're dedicated, but...
And if you could revolutionize something, what would you?
Well, I do what I can. Obviously, I feel like in some ways I'm, expanding the different options that women have, the different reproductive options that they have, and I think that could revolutionize the historical family makeup, about the different options that maybe they would have in starting a family. Really unrelated to my job, but it's been rewarding. How about you? What is your philosophy on life? What do you feel the future holds?
Well, I think that, you and I we share quite a lot, but we are different in that you have 55 children and have helped 55 or maybe now 70 different women to become pregnant and to have children, and you've done it for free. You've helped out, and I can see that the people that you've helped out really appreciate and really love you for it, and you go around the world helping women and seeing families of many different cross-section of families from the families of the earth, and see their basic questions on fertility and reproduction and family, and so you are a cross-section in many ways of society in an unexpected way. So, and myself, I look after a very, I'm very limited. Your cross-section is expansive and mine is limited. So I think it's better to focus on you and how your perspective that you get from this sort of horizontal access that you get into families and into people's lives and into their vertical lives, into all the details. You just yesterday were at one of your mother's parents. Their father took you to the gym, to the gymnasium. Maybe tell me about a day in the life of an afternoon in the life of a person that traverses the social circumstances like a skier on an alpine tour.
It's interesting because I do get to see a lot of different families. Sometimes it almost makes me sad because I see what great fathers a lot of these women that I helped, they had amazing dads. Yesterday was no exception because I was visiting my daughter and her mom, and then of course we went to her parents, and I see how dedicated and devoted he is, not just as a father but as a grandfather, and it makes me sad that maybe I won't be able to give my child that same level of attention and affection. That's, I think, everyone's hope and dream, is that they want to at least be a good father or a better father than their father was to them. But I had a great father. And I'm never going to be able to be as good of a parent to my kids as my father was to me. In some ways, that's sad. But it's interesting because what I have noticed is that the families all around the world that I've helped, they're all the same. They all love their children. They sometimes their privacy level varies, but I think that varies from person to person, not necessarily almost country to country. So the mothers, they're all, a lot of them, the single women, consistently, they're just complaining about the guys in their country. Oh, well, men from Hungary, they're very chauvinistic. But, of course, I'm hearing that in every country, of the problems with the men in their country and how, how they struggle to find men that would be, they don't want men from their country. It's an issue, and they have trouble meeting.
Well, so Hungary...
that was just a small example.
What's another example?
I'm just saying every country, the women are complaining about the guys in their country.
What complaints?
What complaints?
Yeah.
How the guy isn't settling down with them, and how they just playing the field. It's the exact same thing I'm going to hear right here in Tel Aviv. You speak to any woman in their 30s, then they're going to tell you how they struggle to find the guy. I think it's a problem, clearly. What's interesting is so that story is very similar, and then of course the women and their love for the mothers and their love for their children. That story is consistent no matter where you go in the world. That also stays the same. What the major variant is, what's different in every country, is the laws. The laws is in Thailand, you have France, Germany, you have to be married. If you're not married, then no clinic is going to even look at you. We can't help you. We can't help you have a child. That's true in Taiwan. That's true in a lot of countries. And then I went to Belgium, and any guy and any girl can show up, and the clinic can help anybody, and insurance will cover it in full, you know. And then you have a country like the U.S., which is the Wild West of fertility. Almost anything goes. Literally, almost anything goes.
In the U.S.?
Yes. Problem is, you can't afford it. It's very expensive. So that part hasn't really been fixed. So even if it's legal, it doesn't mean it's really an option for the vast majority of society. Only 16 states even cover fertility. But of course, even out of those, if you're on a public health insurance plan, then it's obviously not going to be covered.
You've mentioned affordability several times. What do you mean by affordability? Discuss affordability.
Well, doctors in the United States, even including fertility doctors, are making probably $1 million a year. Very, very difficult to become a doctor in the United States, and then to become a fertility doctor is even extra difficult because you have the same number of years of schooling as a brain surgeon. So you could either be a brain surgeon or a fertility doctor would be the same amount of education. So they end up needing to charge a lot of money to pay back all those loans and all that hard work. So I'm not faulting them for charging a lot, but there's no public healthcare system, so most private insurances won't cover the fertility treatments. You know what else is interesting about America is that if you're too old and you need an egg donor to help the woman, so let's say a woman who's 45 or older is going to have a very difficult time conceiving using her own eggs. She's going to need a woman to help donate those eggs. Only in America are you allowed to see a picture of your egg donor. No other country allows it. You can't see a baby picture. You can't see an adult picture. You just cannot see a picture. Only the United States allows you to see a picture. And that's not the woman that's holding out, not wanting to show the picture. It's the laws of the country don't allow you to see a picture of your egg donor. So the laws vary. The families are the same. Stories are the same. The people are the same. Only thing that's different are the laws.
Okay. I suppose... So what do you think... what do you think the women could do if it's so expensive? What type of alternative exists for them? And can women become entirely educated and autonomous over their fertility cycles?
Well, most women that are under 40 should have no problem conceiving on their own without any fertility clinic. If they struggle to afford it, they could move to one of the 16 states that would cover it. Or less traumatic for them would be maybe just going on vacation to Mexico. You go on vacation to Spain, Czech Republic, Hungary, Ukraine. It's quite cheap. You could just go to another country for a week or two and do your fertility treatments there, and it's going to be quite affordable. Of course, the U.S. dollar is strong, and cost you a few $1,000s, but that's including.
And where do they get their sperm from?
Well, the sperm, either they can find someone like me to travel out there. I've been to 10 countries last month. Of course, only 7 of them were for helping women conceive. Or they could obviously buy frozen sperm. Of course, a lot of countries don't let you see a picture of your donor either. That varies, but most of them do allow it. Isn't that interesting? Most countries will allow you to see a picture of your sperm donor, but no country allows you to see a picture of your egg donor.
Do you think that just like there is communication between people over the internet and over WhatsApp and short messaging, and there's also immediate delivery, do you think that we can also impregnate and cross-fertilize over countries, over mail, or through the store?
I've mailed my sperm to a couple, and when they got it, they put it inside and got pregnant that way. So that's certainly possible. Obviously, you could do it longer distances, because I just mailed it a couple states away and overnighted it to them. But if you put it into a tank with liquid nitrogen, then it could last for much longer. You could send it in, even if it takes a couple of days to get there.
Really?
The sperm would still be viable.
How would you put your sperm in liquid nitrogen?
Well, what I did when I mailed it is I didn't put it in liquid nitrogen. I mixed it with a type of egg yolk solution. So it's like a TYB, it's called. It's a buffer, and I mixed it with that solution. Then I put it in an ice pack. to keep it cool.
Like in what? You put it in a vial?
A vial,
Yeah.
yes, mixed with the TYB.
TYB.
It's like egg yolk,
And
then
what? How did you cover it?
and then I covered it with the seal, and
Like
then
with what type of seal? Like with a twist seal?
yes, just a cap
Twist.
to close it, and then I usually wrapped it up in a napkin just because you don't want it to touch the ice pack because you don't want it to freeze. You just want to keep it cool, and then I would put it in this cooler with ice packs, and then bring it to FedEx, but not for ground shipping. I'd be overnighting it, and that would last 12 hours, 24 hours, maybe even up to 36 hours that way. Of course, if you put it in liquid nitrogen, it could last many, many years. Of course,
So
the liquid
how does-
nitrogen would
how does-
evaporate, but you would have to keep on doing it. But you would really need an embryologist to help you with that.
You're saying that embryologists cost a lot of money, and you've also talked about free education, and you've talked about affordability several times. So, and you seem to, because you give away also the most valuable thing in the human experience is there's DNA, and you give your DNA away for free. So affordability seems to be on your mind. So,
Well, ultimately, the money that they'll end up saving on the fertility treatment would just be more money that they'd be able to pay for the child. Obviously, being a mother and raising a family can be expensive. I think it's an issue here in Israel because even though the fertility treatments are free, the women still have to pay for the sperm. And because they're paying so much for the sperm, they want to do it in as few cycles as possible. So they end up really pressuring the doctor to put in multiples. And then when you put in multiples into your womb, it includes a whole bunch of increased risks. And a lot of times they have premature births because of those multiples, and then sometimes the kid's IQ score would be lower because of those premature births. Typically, premature births result in an IQ score 10 points lower than the equivalent IQ score of maybe another sibling, right? So I think it's putting increased pressure, I think, by the fact that they spend so much on the sperm. And why are they spending so much on the sperm? That's because they don't want to get sperm locally. Why don't they want to get sperm locally, you ask? And that's because in Israel, if you buy sperm from Israel, then it has to be completely anonymous. Even after 18 years, there can't even be an opportunity for the mother or the child to ever find out who their father is. Of course, other countries are different, but here it has to be completely anonymous. So a lot of the women here purchase sperm from another country just with the fact that maybe when the child's 18, they will be able to track down their father. Of course, now with the advent of 23andMe and Ancestry.com, where you could submit your DNA with a little bit of legwork, there's really no such thing as anonymous donations anymore. You'd be able to track down your donor, I think, no matter what.
Ari, for the purpose of indexing this very important session and the topics that we've covered, I think that we will have to stop the session and begin anew at another stage. So what I really wanted to sort of discuss with you in these sessions would be from your exposure to the phenomena of humanity over so many countries, and also to women in certain situations, how would you envisage the womankind and the perspectives from a man on womankind from such close up, and from the perspective of fertility, which is such an important woman's issue? So I'd like to talk about that, and also your perspectives on reaching out to other people. You're a nice guy, and you do this out of the kindness of your heart, and I'd like to discuss what is at the foundations of a nice guy. And so we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for this expose, and we'll continue the next session.
Oh, it's my pleasure.